Thank you for joining me for this July rune reading. Before I commence with the reading, I would like to wish you a very happy July. I'm just going to share the runes with you. Here we are. Let's just make that bigger. This in the corner, out of the way. So the way I have set this reading up, I am reading from bottom left towards the right. Then I am reading the next row in the middle, and then I'm reading the row at the top. Right in the left-hand corner, we have Fairpitly, which is open like a cup to the sky. And that is a very nice position actually for it to be in this reading, because the first rune in this kind of general reading talks about ideas for approaches to life and how we can make the most of life. And this is about seeking inspiration, seeking the highest and the best, whatever it is really that makes us feel good about ourselves, assists us to be more of who we could be. And that is always a positive contribution to all that is, whether the energy going forwards as part of all that is, or simply they're people that we meet in the everyday way and we respond from a higher place. At the centre of the bottom row, we are reminded that the troubles that have been ongoing for quite some time now are still with us, unfortunately. And again, that also, in a way, emphasises the importance of seeking inspiration individually and collectively. And the rune on the right, known as Avaz or Yor, both of which have horse themes. If you imagine in the olden days and somebody was riding a horse on a long journey, they would have to think about the wisdom of undertaking that journey, where the horse would eat and drink, and so on. And again, whether it is worthwhile using the energy of the horse. But it's about making wise choices and aiming for the right target. Another name for this rune is Eo, which is about yew, the yew tree, and the kind of wood that was used for making archery bows in olden times, and aiming for the target. And this is indeed about aiming for the target. And on a personal level, it counsels us also to think of if we don't know what the target is, how would we like to feel? And to bring forth that feeling, knowing that there is indeed a pattern match within energetic fields that I believe, and many other people believe, is part of life. So in generating the feeling that we would like to experience, it can help us to move towards the thinking and the ideas that could be part of that reality. And it works beautifully in tandem with the inspiration of Verpickley and of our approach to and handling of the difficult things that life has brought, that life inevitably will always bring some. But coming back to this, there is a couple of things that I would like to mention that I felt intuitively July into August, but more likely July, that these things are likelihoods they are not certainties, but a strong impression I had of some bigger upheaval in the Pacific Rim area that would make it onto worldwide news and be seen as exceptional was something that I felt. I also felt intuitively that there was a likelihood of some news reaching us through an Australian news channel about something that was taking place in an Asian country to do with conflict or uprising, and the way that this was being handled was what was raising, if not question marks, was making it more newsworthy. I am not talking, I emphasize here, none of the impressions I had could be said to point to World War III in this regard, but what I am talking about is where there is something about technology and the way this situation in Asia is handled. And we would think, well, is that something we want? Is that something that should become part of life? It may be technology that we already know is in existence, but this, I feel, would be a new use for it. And that would trigger, quite rightly, discussion and responses and ideas, which can only be a good thing. Coming forwards now to the middle row, which is the one between the top and the bottom. I'm not talking about the columns, I'm talking about the rows here. We have at the centre Gebo, or also known as Gyurv. And I always say it's give yourself a gift in the form of a decision. But when I am talking about the second row, the middle row in this kind of reading, I am not really talking about at the level of the individual and individual responses. That was dealt with in the bottom row. So what I am talking about here is that situations that arise that need a response. And we've got certain keys to this. We've got Rado on the left, which is always it's the wheel of fortune moving forwards in tarot. It's the knight on horseback riding into the situation and knowing that something has to be done, because here we've got a situation where we would say that there has to be a response. And Sorolo on the right is saying that metaphorically, the sunshine is a little bit reduced in life. We don't want to have to deal with some things that happen, but we have to deal with them. I also feel that part of this, not all of it, would relate to weather patterns and other aspects in nature apart from the Pacific Rim area, where responses, there has to be a response. There has to be a way of thinking that comes forward because of it. And I feel that extreme weather events, not just those that we've got in Europe at the moment with extreme heat, but different kinds of extreme weather event, I feel will be coming, will be to the fore in the month of July and the month of August in a way that is quite strong, that we're having to think, how do we deal with this or respond to this in a new way that perhaps works better, because that is being shown here. And again, I feel that current world situations that are troubling, this thinking in a new way and that the acknowledgement that this is necessary is something that is going to come into play, not always, but sometimes in those kinds of conflict situations and how, how they can be managed and responded to by the rest of the world that isn't in that place. And going forwards, looking at the trajectory for going forwards, this is quite interesting given the reading that I did for the spring, in which I mentioned that one of the reasons we have so many troubles in the world at the moment is that we are, in a way, situated between times, between the old and the new day. And I didn't feel that we'd entered yet then the conclusion phase of the old. But looking forward, looking at the top row of this reading, the trajectory appears to be positive regarding that kind of processing, that kind of transformation that we are, in a way, witnessing more the end of that which hasn't been working, that it's coming more into its conclusion phase, whereby something new can be invited onto the stage, so to speak. Because on the left here we have auras, which is all about structure, particularly the big structures like governments and so on. So we can probably expect to see quite a few changes, swift changes sometimes, in different parts of the world, where that which hasn't worked well for some time is getting into its end phase, or actually coming apart so something new can be put into existence. And I feel that one of the things, looking at the rune in the center, Malva or Manas, it's very much about humanitarian issues. And I feel that the way that we have, in many instances, failed, or at the very least, not done very well concerning these, is going to be part of what causes a demand for something newer, something that works at least better than what we have at the moment. But again, there is a need to look at the direction that people want to go collectively, which may not always be the same direction that governments will currently be pushing in, which is why I feel there's quite a lot of turbulence where governments are concerned in different parts of the world, more so than there has been. And I know there's been a lot of turbulence already, but I definitely feel here that this is leading to a positive. It's leading towards more positive possibilities and away from more of the same as it goes forward. So in summary with this reading, there is a lot coming up for consideration, a lot arising, both within the natural world, within the weather systems, which are of course part of the natural world, and within the political situations, humanitarian situations, and evaluating systems and ways for going forwards and being perhaps at last willing to say that what we have is in some instances broken, and therefore we need to launch on a different trajectory. We are not quite there yet, but this rune reading suggests we are coming into the end phase of the trajectory, the way of doing things that needs to evolve quite a lot, because it seems to have gone maybe not as far as it can, but as far as we would want it to in a particular direction. So there's indications here also, not just of turbulence, but of exciting times with a high potential for delivering change and inevitably some changes that we would not have thought of that would then turn out to be blessings will, I feel, have their beginning at this time. Now, I thank you for joining me for this reading. I'm not sure at the moment whether I will complete another reading for August. I will see how I feel closer to the time. Whilst in this reading, I am talking about things that arise principally during July. I am, of course, aware that not everything that arises in July concludes in July, although I feel that some trends and situations that have featured here will be the kind that tend to have to be dealt with at the time, as well as there being, of course, many others that will take a longer period that are part of a new trajectory that is not yet in place, because what we have is still evolving, is still playing its way out. But I would like to remind everyone that these are exciting times, and that also how we choose to think makes a difference for ourselves in our interactions with others, and also with our energetic output. In other words, the frequency that we are broadcasting out into the world. And with these thoughts, I would like to wish you a happy July and a happy summer.